Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lips podcast. This is Brian.
And I'm Paul. We'd like to welcome you to a community meant for the men of the world to share our thoughts and perspectives on marriage.
We can learn from each other's experiences and help each other be better husbands. Now, let's get right into the show.
Thanks for tuning in. Today, we're going to talk about intellectualizing your feelings. Sometimes, as husbands, we talk ourselves into having feelings or even talk ourselves out of the feelings that we feel and try to convince ourselves of both. So, we're going to just tackle that topic today.
And we also want to hear from you. So make sure you are hitting us up on our socials. That is Marriage is Tougher. You can search across all the platforms, Facebook, Instagram. Where else are we at?
TikTok?
We're on TikTok, but we haven't put any content there yet. What am I thinking? YouTube. Yeah, you can find us on YouTube. We're posting all the videos there. But yeah, make sure you do that. Converse with us on the website, marriageistuffer.com. You can also reach out and let us know you want to be a guest on the show. So yeah, do all those things. And outside of that, let's have this conversation. All right. So intellectualizing your feelings. Man, I feel like I do this all too often. Um, like for me, it hits real hard because I think I try to convince myself that maybe I don't have feelings or maybe that I shouldn't have a feeling that I'm having is probably the better way to put it. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I'm 100% shouldn't have feelings. Like, why am I feeling this way about whatever this is?
Right.
Like, yes, it's so much in my mind. There's so much more energy, or you can spend your time more wisely than experiencing feeling. So no, that's wild. But I guess to unpack that, it's like, where does that even come from?
Yeah. So it comes for me from I think some past experiences I've had, right? And I want to be clear what I'm about to talk about kind of all falls in the fear category as far as a feeling is concerned, right?
Mhm.
There's oftentimes where my wife will be working at night, I'm home with the kids or whatever, and I simply, to this day, cannot sleep until I know she's home safe, right? Now, the evidence I have of our decently long relationship tells me that she's going to be home safe, right? But for whatever reason, that like I just get stuck there, and she could text me or not text me, one way or the other. It's more or less I just need her there. Like it's a thing.
Yeah. So, but that makes sense. But how are you wrapping that into feelings?
Um,
Now, are we
so
talking emotions that happen, or is this like intuition that falls into that, I guess?
I would probably call it more a false intuition,
Okay.
right? But it's not like I'm imagining that she is, hurt or something like that. It's just this subconscious thing that I experience that logically I can place in fear,
Hmm.
but I'm not so fearful of it where I'm like, well, I got to pack the kids up and go find her.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
um, because I know she's at work. It's I don't know. I can't to this day explain it. So I'm probably gonna have to go talk to somebody to unpack it,
Hmm.
to deal with it. But man, it's a struggle for me. That one specifically is a struggle for me.
That is understandable. Um, meaning those thoughts or whatever. But it can become another level when certain things in life are hindered because of that false intuition.
Yeah.
But so yeah, maybe unpack that with someone that knows how to do those things.
Right.
But yeah, so that is one way we can either lean into, but at the same time, like you, yeah, it's a level that you're like, well, we're not gonna go search for her because I know she's fine. But
Yep.
it's still like, but what if she isn't?
Yeah.
Type of thing. Um, yeah, I mean, for me, my feelings are more like, am I irritated by this thing that's happened? And then, should I be irritated? No, I shouldn't be irritated. Okay, I'm just gonna let it go. But then secretly, or not secretly, deep down, it's not addressed. Um, and then it can be like that's just it. Like I've talked myself out of being irritated.
Yeah. That's a big one for me too. There are often times when my wife will ask me, "Hey, what's wrong?" And I'll be like, "Nothing," because I'm actively convincing myself that I shouldn't be upset about whatever it is. So, first off, I've just lied to her that nothing's wrong because she could see it in my face that something is off, right? She doesn't know
Right.
if it's about her or just something that happened at work or whatever the case may be. She's just genuinely asking, "Hey, what's wrong?" Because she cares. And as she does, she could be there just to let me get it off my chest and listen. Or if it's something within our relationship, she may just want to tackle it and get it out of the way so we can move on. But for whatever reason, as the title of the episode says, I intellectualize myself out of talking to my wife about my issues. And it probably often is something that was, just something that like annoyed me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I feel like, oh, that's something so little that doesn't warrant a conversation, right? I don't need to let her know that I feel vulnerable in this moment because I feel upset about something so little, right? But then, like you said, it goes unmanaged. It
Mm-hmm.
goes, just unhandled, and then it festers, and then it happens again, and I'm like, ooh, there it is again.
Right. Yeah. The thing about that is, I don't- intellectualizing, I guess, is kind of like explaining it away, right? In
Yeah.
this case, but it's almost maybe we should frame it as conflict resolution,
Mm,
right? If we see it as conflict resolution, for me, I'm more apt to lean in, right? Because if there's like something that I see as a conflict, I'm trying to resolve it, especially with my wife, right?
yeah.
Or anyone close to me. Like, I don't want to have conflict. We got to work through it. At my job, with my friends. All right, well, what's the deal? We're going to work through it. If we think of it as conflict resolution, as far as I'm having these feelings, I'm annoyed by this, or, I'm hurt by this, let's talk through it real quick, then it never gets to fester, right? But it just like if we have a conflict, but we never say anything about it, it's just hanging in the room, whatever room you walk in with the person that you have the conflict with. So maybe if we shift our mind and think of our feelings, maybe not call it conflict resolution, but think of it along those lines. Like,
Right.
let me just get this out. We'll have a conversation. Even if it goes into a 10-minute conversation and there's a 5-second feeling, at least it's gone. One, I've opened up a vulnerability space with my wife, which she's been wanting and
Right.
which we should be doing. Two, it's not anything big that's scary, like, I just spent, I just blew $50,000 on stocks, right? It's not anything of that nature,
Yeah.
right? So this is, if we can get past this, it's those small wins that strengthen our marriage, that undergird our marriage. We say, hey, I'm having this feeling. This is what it is. It's over. Even if we're like, it's over now. I just want to let you know this was going on in my brain.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, you know what, pays off. I think I've told you that I've started to bring up these little things in my marriage. Um, like for example, it had nothing to do with my wife. It was this feeling that I had that I was experiencing some fear about our future plans to purchase a home,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just because I was basing what I knew how to do, not so much what I should do, in this little scenario I was playing out in my head, I went to her and I was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, in my head I was toying around with the idea of applying for a credit card, right? And my idea was like I just want to boost my credit score, right? Because we haven't played in a place yet where we let our score drop and then let it become indeterminable, right? And then so the process we're going to go through when we're ready and have the significant down payment that we're looking to save is be manually underwritten for the home.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and because I don't know what that side of it is, I got a little afraid. I'm like, oh, I better like juice my score just in case.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But then I just talked it out with my wife. I was like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, obviously, I didn't do this. I just wanted to let you know, like, I was having this feeling. Um, and we really didn't necessarily have a conversation about it because that's how I approached it. It was just like, hey, like, I'm over this now. I just wanted to let you know this happened. Um, and she's like, okay. Right. And then she was like, thank you for telling me. Um, and I think she may have been waiting for me to have more to say about it. But again, like I said, it was just more or less, I just wanted to get that off my chest. And like you said, Paul, which I'm glad you did earlier, opening up that space of vulnerability with your wife is huge because as you were initially talking, my thought was, yeah, but there was a time where I couldn't do that. Right. So I guess I was just happy that you went into it a little bit further because that was my first reaction. Like, there's probably some people listening that are saying, like, I don't really know how to do that yet. So, do you think it might be beneficial to talk a little bit more about that?
Man, I mean, I think your example was good. I was just thinking, if you start with not even feeling type conversations, right? If it's something that's light that we think is dumb that ran through our head, just still talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, hey, I don't know, I was thinking about going to said gas station, but then, I pulled up the app to see if there was any gas cheaper, so I went here. Right? Just start talking about little things of your thought process,
Mhm.
and so that way you can lean into when it goes from thought to feelings, that you can say, hey, another little thing, hey, like, I don't know, or even if you don't want to do it about you, maybe just check in with her, right?
Okay.
Like, hey, um I know some days when you come from home from work, it's, you haven't had good days, is there anything that happened today? Or um on a positive, like, hey, I know you said you had a bad day, but where did you crush it today? um just some things that might not be you but still can help you feel engaged in your wife's feelings and situations.
Yeah, I like that because I think that it also opens up a line for you to start communicating as well. And then if you get in that practice and if you're intentional about how she's communicating those things to you, you then can listen and learn how to do the same, right? But I think if you get into the practice of she gives you something, then if it's something about her day, if it hits with you, um, you can then like kind of turn it around and say, "Oh yeah, this also happened in my day." Um, I'm thinking like just if it's kind of in the same realm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think it's listening intently to what she's saying. Well, in my case, my wife is a good communicator, um, verbal processor. So I take kind of cues from her, like, okay, she just said this. How can I say it? Say something like this back, like in communication. Like she's focused on this, and I like the way she does it. Is there a way that I can do that back? It's almost like teaching, learning by observation, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And seeing, like, in my case, like she can literally talk about anything, right? So kind of seeing that, pick up on cues. And again, I think it's all about the blanket statement of, hey, I'm working on talking through my feelings and not explaining them away. So I may say some things that are trivial, but I'm just trying to let you inside. I think if we start with that as like focused, focused energy, she'll be open to like, all right, why are you like she won't be like, why are you telling me this? Like, and if she is, you can remind her, hey, remember the other day I said I'm going to be more intentional on letting you know about my feelings and my thoughts so that I can open up to you more. I mean, that's, to me, that's words that every wife wants to hear.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny you said that because that's kind of how I felt when I told her about thinking about the credit card. She's just like, all right." I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you don't care?"
Yeah. And I think our expectations have to be to just set them low. Like, worst case scenario, she's gonna be like, okay. I mean, I guess worst case scenario, she'd be like, that's dumb. but
Right, right.
but I mean, that's, if that's your relationship where she says that, you mean, like, if that's how you guys respond, that's fine. Some people, that's how they communicate. So I'm not
Yeah,
saying that's not it, but if whatever works for you, so that you can understand that she may not, it may not go into this big deep conversation that we're fearful of having as men. It may just be like, okay.
yeah.
Like,
Meh.
yeah.
No, it's that's cool because I actually think that if she were to say those words, "That's dumb" to me, she would have said it in a laughing manner,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't have taken that as an attack, right? It would have just made me realize, like, yeah, I know it's dumb. I just was trying to, be honest with you about thoughts I was having and also use it as a tool to help her hold me accountable,
Right.
which
Yeah.
is, a space I wanted to open with her as well.
Yeah. And going back to what we just talked about, I think it's more set yourself up not to expect something that would make you see her response as something that we can get offended by. That's what more I was going, right? Because
Okay.
understand your wife and your situation and know that if you say this to her, it's hard for me to think that she would come at you at a place to hurt you in that space when you preface, I'm working on this for the betterment of our relationship, and it may be silly the things I say. Then she'll just agree, like, yeah, that seems silly, but I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah.
Like, don't get offended by those words.
Right. Uh, Sorry, my mind went off on a tangent, but yeah, man. So I think I have to mention this. There are times, well, I'm going to bring up the kids. There are times, and I need to be better at this, that I try to intellectualize my kids out of their feelings as well. Right. And this happens, I think, most with my oldest daughter and then now my son, who is 3, about to be 4 next month. Right. And what's even funnier about it is that I often think about our conversations and how well you guys did with Isaiah. And I catch myself and I try to lean heavier into one, allowing them to feel how they're feeling, and then two, allowing them to communicate that to me in a safe place where
Mhm.
I'm not just like, yeah, but that doesn't even make sense. Like just just stop. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I feel that. I think seeing my wife model that helped me get better, or even her after the fact, be like, maybe you should ask what's going on, why they feel that way, right? Because if it's out of their ordinary character, then if they can, helping them identify what that is will help them identify as they get older,
Mhm.
right? Instead of just being like, stop, quit crying, why are you being so emotional, blah blah blah. Be like, hey, what just happened that you're now crying? You were just fine a couple seconds ago. And then if they can't help them try to identify things um, that they can pick out if they don't have the vocabulary to articulate.
Mhm.
But that's also a balance of like giving them an out to be like, oh yeah, that's it. Like if it's not, like just kind of give them that space. So um yeah, just I think it's more just being intentional
Yeah.
with those close to you. So even with the kids, like, and that's tough, man, especially if you've had a rough day and it seems trivial and you're like, what is going on? Or it's been happening all day and you've been good, and then this is the last straw, and you're like, everyone stop. Like, chill out. Like that's, I mean, that just happens to be right, what life is. And it's in those moments where we make that extra effort and push through, is the things that your kids will bring up that you don't even remember.
Yeah. Yeah, man. My practice now is to try to help them, like you said, verbalize what's going on, right? My daughter is 7, nearly 8, and she's good at doing that. My son, like I said, 3, about to be 4, is actually fairly decent. Um, my kids who are speaking all have decent vocabularies. So he often says things to me that I don't even know if he knows what the word means, but somehow he uses it in context, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
is cool. Um, but like I said, my practice now is to just try to pull more out of him, and I am intentional now about trying to make sure that he knows that's a safe place to say what he's feeling, right? And there's typically 2 categories. One for him is fear, and then the other is sadness,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, it's typically the fear one that I have that like visceral reaction to. And I'm just like, bro, it's a cartoon movie. Like, why? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Excuse me. And, in my man brain, I'm just like, well, just go play with something. Stop watching the movie. You know what I mean? But, that's just like he's experiencing. I think that's maybe what I'm thinking. Like, how much of this is me trying to control the situation rather than just letting him be who he is?
Mm. Yeah, that is always the balance, which is good. It all comes back to being intentional, right?
Mhm.
Like really evaluating, trying to evaluate all situations separately instead
Yeah.
of like linking them, and it's, understanding, in this case, like understanding that, Maxwell is 4, 3, almost 4, and their brains haven't, they don't, not until like 8 or 9 do they understand what's real and what's fantasy. So to him, this cartoon movie is really happening and he's in it. Like, you ever notice when kids, like, you're trying to talk to them while they're watching something and they just are not hearing you? It's because they are living whatever they're watching.
Right.
Um, but the same thing is being intentional with ourselves when we're walking through these feelings too. Like,
Yeah.
giving ourselves, even be like, hey, Paul, this is a safe space to work out your feelings. Like, it's fine. It may be whatever our version of a cartoon movie is. Like, it's okay. Just walk through it and it'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good stuff. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on?
So just understanding feelings are okay. And if you're intentional about working through them and processing them, you won't have to talk yourself out of them or invalidate them so that you can move on with your life.